How do you transition to full-time RV living? In this video, we're going to detail the steps we took preparing to RV full-time, step by step and in chronological order.
Welcome back to the RV Odd Couple. My name is John.
And I'm Mercedes, and we are pursuing freedom, independence, and adventure.
Because life is so short, guys.
It is. There's so much to cover when transitioning to full-time RV living. So what we decided to do was to categorize everything into 3 phases or 3 buckets. So the first phase we call the dreaming and research phase, right? This is really fun, but you haven't really taken action yet. Phase 2 is the action phase where you literally have your house on the market, things are moving. And then phase 3, I call the oh snap phase. It's the no turning back phase.
What did we do?
Yes, it involves a freak out, and we're gonna detail all of it.
Now, we get a lot of people who are considering this lifestyle. They want to leave their sticks and bricks and go into full-time RV living. This video is designed to give you guys a complete idea of all the steps that are involved with doing that. Now, in the dreaming phase, that's the easy part, right? I mean, the grass is always greener on the other side no matter what you do. Now we're 19 months into living this lifestyle. It's becoming pretty normal to us. But there is a process that Mercedes put together that I think is going to help all of you who are considering this lifestyle.
So the dreaming phase is the initial phase. It's the fun phase. It's exciting. And you're also doing a lot of research. So the first thing you need to do, and I love this, you get a big piece of paper. Here.
This is a mind map. We've been doing these ever since we started RVing.
No, we gotta cover your face, not mine.
Okay.
All right, so I love paper. I love writing things down. And these things in Office Depot, I think it's like 30 bucks. And the first thing we did was we dumped everything that we could think of. We just wrote it down. The point of this is just to get it out of your brain and onto a piece of paper, because the more things are flying around in your head, the more dangerous it is. So you're gonna write down things like buying the RV. You're gonna write down things like the RV budget. What's that gonna look like? You're gonna make a list of things to downsize, mail and your domicile. Maybe you need a truck for the RV that you need to get. Medical appointments, that's a big one too. Who's gonna be your doctor?
Your health insurance.
Your health insurance, if you have kids, if you're gonna homeschool, if you have pets, are their shots up to date? Like all this stuff, just write it down.
Yeah, the whole idea, guys, here is just to vomit it out onto the page of everything that you can think of that needs to be done to actually execute. Sell all your stuff, what you need to buy and what you need to do.
Exactly. This is where you can really see where you're at to where you wanna go,
Exactly.
right? And then you can fill in the gaps. And another big thing I want you to write down on that piece of paper, and don't worry, it doesn't have to be 100% correct. I want you to write a date.
Exactly. And if you have a partner, the whole point of this is to be completely honest, not only with yourself about what this is really going to look like, and being honest with your partner about what you both really want. In Mercedes and I case, rarely do we ever agree on anything that we want.
Yeah.
But it's so important just to dump it out there. Get it on a piece of paper so that you can look at it, step back, and then realize how much there is to do, because there's a lot of things to do.
And what I love about those pieces of paper is that they have the sticky on them, so we put them right by our dining room. So every day when we were eating, when we were walking through the house, we could see it and we could move the project along. Even if it was just a little bit, we could move it along.
And more importantly, we could actually just jump up if something popped into our head, you know,
Write it down.
and go right over and write it down. It's a really fun way to do it.
So let's start with, where do you live? Are you owning or do you rent? We were at that time renting, so we made our set-off date the date that our lease expired. If you're owning, then you might want to write realtor, put house on the market. You want to consider things like, is there a certain season of the year where it's better to put your house on the market? Are you retiring in a set date? All that stuff, just dump it all down there in no particular order. But what this is going to do is give you a way to really formalize a plan, because then you'll make a newer version of that a little bit more sequentially. In this dreaming phase, this is also where you're going to start to research homeschooling requirements, but you're not necessarily going to take action on it yet.
Right. It's just the planning phase.
Some people won't make it out of the dreaming phase, and that's okay. Some people will just consider it, and then they'll do research, and then they'll decide, no, this isn't for me. But there are things that you can do that you need to do anyways, right? So one of them, for example, is to downsize. You don't need to throw out your great-grandmother's fine china, but at minimum, stop bringing more things into the house.
Yeah, stop buying stuff and start listing a complete inventory of everything you have. Kind of put it in buckets. What you're going to sell, what you're going to give away, what the kids are going to get. We actually have a video where we talk about downsizing. We'll put it right up there.
The longer you have to downsize, the better off you'll be. It'll be less traumatic. You want to spend as much time as you need in this phase. Having 5 years in the dreaming phase is not a problem. It's an asset because it gives you more time to explore. You can still exit and decide this is it for me without hurting yourself financially.
Exactly. That's what the mind map is going to do. Is before you take any action, you're going to spell it all out. You're going to build a blueprint of what this looks like before you start selling stuff, before you start giving stuff away, before you do anything. You want to get it all into one piece of paper.
Another big thing that you should be doing in the dreaming phase is you should be saving up that nest egg. You should be eliminating debt, you know, all those sorts of things that you should do anyways, right? You should be saving money no matter what. So those types of things are really good actions to take during the dreaming phase. Another big piece to the dreaming phase is listing off what needs to happen. So for example, if you need to apply for Social Security, when can you do that? Because it takes months to actually get your check in. So you want to know what you need to do and when you need to do it. If you need to work, then you need to have an idea of what kind of remote job you want to do. And if your current job is not remote, the sooner you start looking for that job, the better. So now's the time to start researching and developing a budget. We actually have a whole budget series that we'll link to where we talk about the initial startup costs, our first 6 months, and then our first full year. In that video series, once you know how much it's kind of going to cost you, then you can kind of estimate how much do you need to earn. And if you still need to work while you RV full time, having a plan in place is going to be crucial. If you're fortunate enough to be retired, then you know exactly what your income is, but you still need to plan your expenses around it.
Exactly. The last thing you want to do, guys, is jump into the RV lifestyle and not have enough money to be able to do it. We're not talking about having 2 or 3 months in the bank. Mercedes and I had a year in the bank before we did it. You got to have a solid plan and a solid budget and be honest with yourself about what you can do and what you can't do. You might think, oh, I'll just boondock and not camp at campgrounds. That's not realistic. It is for very few people. They love that lifestyle. But for most of us, it's too much of a dramatic change to actually make that work.
The next very important thing that you need to do while in the dreaming phase is make sure all of your medical appointments are up to date. If you have this weird condition that you've been procrastinating on getting it checked out, get it checked out now, because if you require a specialist, it can take 3 to 6 months just to get an appointment.
It's the same thing with your animals. If you have a dog or a cat, you're going to want to get all those files together. You're going to want to get all his appointments up to date. You're going to want to start to collect all the information you need as you travel, and you're even going to want to chip your dog. We talk more about this in this video up here.
So this is also the phase where you're watching a lot of videos, you're learning about different types of RVs, you're walking in RVs, but you're leaving your checkbook at home. So window shopping, you're not taking action, you're just researching. And you know, a lot of people will say you need to research, but they won't necessarily tell you what to research. So let's get more specific. I want you guys to sign up for RV travel. That's a big one. Another big thing I want you to do is to join RVer Facebook groups. That's really helpful to start kind of learning the new language. If you were going to move to Italy, you'd learn Italian. Well, you need to learn how to speak RVer.
Yeah, and one of the things that we really enjoyed was actually start to mapping out where we were going to go, the adventures we were going to go, what we were going to see.
Yeah.
This is a lot of fun together, taking out a big map of the United States of America and talking about all the places that you want to see. This is a fantastic way to dream together and get on the same team together and start plotting out your map of where you're going to travel.
Exactly. YouTube is an awesome place to research RVing, but it's really important that you follow at least one YouTuber that RVs in the same type of RV you're interested in. Because, for example, we follow these people that had a very small RV, and he was talking about how a 10-foot hose is plenty for him, and we're in a 42-foot RV, and when we realized that the 10-foot hose doesn't work in all RV campgrounds, he didn't give us bad information. he gave us really good information for his type of RV. So that's why you want to follow a bunch of different RVers, because they all have different things to bring to the table.
Yeah, when we started out, you go down into the YouTube hole, right? As soon as we'd watch the videos together, we'd end up watching 5 or 10 different RVers. But as you go through time, you start to whittle it down into the people that, you know, you really like, that is really helpful to people like you when you're getting started.
Yeah, and we actually turned it kind of into a date night,
yeah,
where I'd get mad if he watched a video without me, and it can really bring you both together, especially I was a little hesitant to RV. It got me on board, and he didn't have to do any of the selling.
Looking back now, we wish we'd actually taken a whole year to prepare for RVing full time. We did the entire process in about 6 months, and it was hard.
It was fast.
It is stressful. So the more time you give yourself to prepare for the RV full-time life, the easier it's going to be when you actually execute it.
Mm-hmm. And one big thing you might consider during this phase too is to rent an RV.
Yep. And I want to be clear here, guys. Make sure that you kind of dial in the RV that you want. Renting an RV can be very expensive. So at least dial in the one that you think you really want. After getting on a lot of them, you've dialed it in, you're about to pull the trigger on buying it, then it's a good time to rent your RV. And we actually rented an RV, and we'll connect to that video right here.
The negative to this dreaming phase is that it's easy to get swept by your emotions and slip into action phase prematurely, and frankly, I think that's kind of what we did. You should be researching things, not just the RVs, but also the trucks.
Take as much time as possible to do the consideration phase.
Mm-hmm. And if you decide, I don't think RVing is for me, that's a phenomenal thing to figure out sooner than later.
Yeah, and if you're a married couple, usually there's one of each, right? There's one that wants to plan, and there's one that wants to jump in with both feet. I literally would have jumped in with both feet and done this in 3 or 4 weeks. Finished all of it. She knows me well enough. I could have pulled it off, but man, would we have had a hard awakening if we had done that.
Yeah, I don't want to have cardiac shock while trying to RV full time. I want to enjoy my life. Together, we kind of compromise.
Right, and the most important part of all of this as a married couple is Mercedes and I became a team.
Yeah.
You know, I honored what she wanted, and she honored some of the things that I wanted. It was a give and take. We wouldn't agree all the time, but we'd talk our way through it and come to a happy medium.
Yeah, and a lot of compromising. A lot of compromising.
So once you jump into the action phase and you start selling stuff and you start buying stuff, this is why the planning phase is so important. Once you start selling stuff or buying stuff, there's no easy way to go backwards. So make sure you're both in the same team, you've got a good plan in front of you before you start taking action.
And this is where it starts to get scary. This is where those emotions can get a little bit more uncomfortable, because now you're taking action. And a lot of it could be putting your house on the market.
If you rent, giving notice to your landlord.
Yeah, that's pretty scary. Giving notice to your job if you're going to switch careers. This is also where you start buying the truck and buying the RV, which please make sure that you have a truck that can tow the RV. We actually have a video on that too. But super important. The two go hand in hand.
Mercedes and I have put a playlist right here together of 4 videos that is going to take you from finding the right RV, buying the right RV, what to buy and not to buy with warranties, and how to insure that RV.
So in the action phase, you're going to continue downsizing, but at this point, you're downsizing the bigger ticket items, right? This is more than just downsizing the sweater you haven't worn in 3 years. This is like, now you're figuring out where the big items need to go.
So those items take time to sell. The quicker you have to sell them, the less money you're going to have to settle for. So the big ticket items, get those on the market as soon as possible.
Now that you're in the action phase, you're going to start buying the curriculum for your child. You're going to know what curriculum you're going to use for homeschooling. Maybe you even start some lessons.
Yeah, you're going to have an internet solution for, you know, mobile living.
Sometimes you have to sell the house in order to buy the RV. But if it's possible to buy the RV while you still have the sticks and bricks, that will enable you to kind of practice living in the RV. Ideally, your first RV trip should be as close to home as possible. Maybe,
even in your front yard, if you can possibly do that.
Yeah, because then you can try moving things in and out. You can see what really fits.
Get used to the RV, find out if anything's broken.
Even though the RV is brand new and you just got it off the dealership, there could be something that needs to be fixed on it. If I were buying a Honda Civic and I buy it, I know I can take off on my road trip that day, right? The Civic Civic's going to be fine.
It's not the case with an RV. There's always going to be problems that you're going to find out once you start trying to live in it.
This is also a really good time to maybe try boondocking for the first time. Try out different RV parks, because the way we like to RV and the way you like to RV could be totally different, and that's fine.
Everybody's idea of freedom, independence, and adventure is different. That's why it's so important to be honest with each other if you're in a marriage or you're setting out with a partner in this type of lifestyle. It starts to become more and more real in the action phase. So in the action phase, make sure you still do the dreaming together with each other. Watch videos, talk about different things, and really try to enjoy it so you can balance that out.
And I think the biggest danger of the action phase is not having spent enough time in the dreaming, preparing, researching phase.
Right.
All right, and then we have phase 3, and phase 3 kind of sneaks up on you, and then all of a sudden you're like, holy moly, Batman, I cannot turn back.
Yeah.
And phase 3 is the,
point of no return. Oh my God, everything's sold. We got an RV and a truck. There's no turning back. We are invested.
And this is scary. This is a really scary phase. But this is not...
It's also exciting.
It's really exciting too. But this is also where you really need to have that solid plan. This is where you need to have your domicile set up. This is the time where you start doing your change of address, and a mail forwarding service. We'll link to that video above. Because remember, you don't want to pay for that mail forwarding service 6 months before you actually take off. And you want to make sure the change of address that you can actually still get the mail there, so to make sure nothing sneaks in by accident from the post office. But this is also where by this time you've already had a bunch of doctor's appointments. You've already told your doctor what's going on and any prescriptions that you need. You've made sure that you have at least a 12-month supply. We got our prescriptions from Walmart, and there's a Walmart pretty much everywhere. And then they could transfer the prescriptions internally. And now in this point of no return phase, you are officially your child's teacher. And you're with them 24/7.
But the biggest blessing of this, guys, I think the thing we both love more about RV full-time life than anything else is that we are together 24/7, and neither one of us ever have to miss a moment with our daughter. You guys know these kids grow so fast, and I get to watch every single minute of it.
This is really now where the plan needs to be very, very clear and precise, because you are leaving very soon. You are doing the final sell-all, anything.
Instead of just planning
sale.
where you're going to travel, for us, we started booking those trips coming out of pocket. And so the reality starts to set in. The funniest thing about this part for me, this was completely exciting to me. I had no regrets. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Mercedes, it wasn't such the case. She still wasn't sure about a lot of different things. But what it ended up doing is it pulled us together more as a team. And when you leave everything that you own behind and you go out into the world with our 2-year-old, when you do that, there's a certain amount of it's us against the world. And it's a beautiful feeling. And that's when our marriage got stronger than it had ever been since we've been married.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. This is also the time that I look back with the most fondness in my heart.
A lot of people who RV full-time call this the honeymoon stage because it's so exciting. But eventually, no matter when it is that you set out, it is going to hit you at different points of what you've actually done. And you are going to be scared. You are going to look back at it and go, my God, what did we do? But just know that those are just like any day in life. It's up and down, and this is what it's been for us. It's been still slowly going up.
It just feels more intense when you're in an RV and when you're in close quarters with each other. And there's moments where I'm like, I am so in love. My family's so wonderful. And then like 5 minutes later, I'm like, I need to get out of here. And that's just normal life, right? This final freak out phase is where you become homeless by design.
You chose to do it. You chose the lifestyle. And it's full of ups and downs as you go. Even though we had those low moments, there was still so much more good than bad.
Try to divide all the things that you have to do into these 3 phases. What part is just dreamy, no harm, no foul? What part is actually action steps, and what is like a point of no return, final last minute thing? And by categorizing everything that you have to do in those 3 different phases, it'll help you get more organized, and it'll help you get a better plan.
Yeah, and don't forget to pray all the way through it, guys.
Yeah. Dear God, please save me. I'm crazy. And you might have noticed that we're wearing different shirts.
I'm not in uniform.
I know. Did you even recognize him? But seriously, we have a his and hers because we couldn't decide on just one design. Check them out, and we hope to get pictures of you guys in these shirts, and we'll put them in a video.
We'll link below.
So now that you know how to plan for your RVing adventure, in the next video, we're going to discuss an uncomfortable but very important topic of RV security. We'll see you in the next video.